Welcome back to a special episode of The Deep Dive. We're going to be rewinding the last 5 years of NVIDIA, the
Yeah.
company buying those awesome graphics cards, the ones that make your games look incredible. But as we'll see in this deep dive, there's a lot more to their story than just fancy graphics.
It's true. NVIDIA has had a wild ride, going from just a gaming powerhouse to, well, something more like an AI empire. These last few years, it's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Okay, so NVIDIA and AI, not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think of video games.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin?
Well, I think their story is a great example of a company really seeing the future before it happened. Back in 2021, they were already talking about how traditional computing power was hitting its limits, like Moore's law, that idea that computer chips double in speed every 2 years. Well, it was starting to sputter out a bit.
Right, I vaguely remember that being a big deal back then, but why should I care?
Well, think about it. It impacts pretty much everything. Your phone, your laptop, even the algorithms that decide which shows you absolutely have to binge watch next. It all depends on processing power. And NVIDIA, they recognized way early on that we were hitting a wall, like we needed a completely new approach. And they were already going all in on something called accelerated computing.
Accelerated computing. Sounds impressive, but break it down for me like I'm five. What is it?
Imagine a carpool lane on the freeway, but for data. GPUs, or graphics processing units, are like those carpool lanes that can handle tons of data all at once. This makes them perfect for things like AI, which needs a ton of processing power. And then you have CPUs, or central processing units, the brains of our computers. They're more like the regular lanes. They can only do so much at once.
So NVIDIA, with all their experience making GPUs, for those awesome graphics cards, they were already in the perfect spot to ride this whole AI wave.
Totally. They weren't just along for the ride, though. They built a whole fleet of ships. In 2021, they introduced the A100 GPU, and that was a game changer. I mean, this thing was so much more energy efficient than the traditional CPUs, which is a huge deal, by the way, because training those AI models takes a crazy amount of energy.
We're talking about the AI models that can create those super realistic images and even write code and compose music, right? I've been playing around with those AI image generators, and wow, they are pretty wild.
Yeah, exactly. And those are all powered by large language models, or LLMs, and they need a ridiculous amount of power. NVIDIA, well, they saw that these LLMs were the future and went all in, releasing the H100 GPU in 2023. This thing is so much faster than the A100, especially for LLMs. Think of it like the difference between using dial-up and having fiber optic internet. That's the kind of leap in performance we're talking about.
Wow, they really put the pedal to the metal. But it sounds like they didn't stop there. What else have they been cooking up in their AI lab? So they've got this super fast AI processing figured out, but isn't that kind of like having a rocket ship with nowhere to launch it from?
Okay.
You need more than just a powerful engine, right?
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's what makes NVIDIA's strategy so interesting. They're not just focused on the hardware, they're building this whole ecosystem. Like in 2023, they were talking about NVIDIA AI Enterprise 3.0, their software suite. You can think of it like the operating system for all this powerful hardware, so it's way easier for companies to use AI.
Right, so they're making it more user-friendly. But who are they targeting with this? Is it just these big tech companies?
Honestly, I think they're going after everyone. Like with
Yeah.
their NVIDIA DGX Cloud, that's their cloud service, that's a perfect example. They're teaming up with these major cloud providers and offering their AI infrastructure on demand. So any company, big or small, they can basically just rent the power of an NVIDIA AI supercomputer instead of having to build one from scratch.
That's really smart. Democratizing AI like that is definitely going to shake things up. But with all this talk about AI changing the world, I have to ask, what do they actually see happening? Like, what's the end game for NVIDIA?
Well, in 2024, they were saying how AI is going to be like a manufacturing process, but instead of making cars or gadgets, it's going to be manufacturing intelligence. And they see themselves as the ones building the factories for this whole new era.
Factories for intelligence. Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. What does that even look like?
Imagine a world where you can design a new product, create a symphony, maybe even diagnose a disease, all with the help of AI. And not just that, but at an insane speed and scale. That's what NVIDIA is working towards. They're not just providing tools, they're building the whole infrastructure for a future that runs on AI.
It's a pretty bold vision, I'll give them that. But it's not that. There are some things about supply chain issues and stuff.
It's true. Back in 2021, they admitted they were having some problems with the supply chain. But, and this is important, those problems are actually a good sign. It shows just how much demand there is for what they're making. Everyone wants in on this AI thing, and NVIDIA is the one leading the charge. They're always trying to make more, but they've also been really upfront that when they launch new products, like going from their Hopper to Blackwell architecture, well, there are going to be some hiccups at first.
So it's not really a bad sign, more like growing pains for a company that's suddenly the main player in one of the biggest tech revolutions ever.
Exactly. And even with those challenges, they're still super optimistic about the future. They keep saying that they expect the demand to be bigger than what they can supply for a long time. That tells you there's a lot of momentum in the AI space.
And speaking of the future, where do they go from here? What's next on their roadmap? So they're building these factories for intelligence, facing huge demand, and staying optimistic. It's a lot to unpack. What's the long game? What does NVIDIA see as the big impact of this whole AI revolution?
Well, they've hinted at a future where AI isn't just some tool. They think it'll be a core part of how we solve problems, how we create things, even how we govern ourselves. They even mentioned sovereign AI in 2024.
Yeah, I remember them saying that, but I'll be honest, I didn't totally catch what they meant.
It's not that complicated, actually. It's like, you know how countries invest in infrastructure, education, defense, all that? Well, they're starting to think of AI the same way, like it's a strategic asset. They want their own AI that runs on their data and is tailored to their needs.
Just like a global AI arms race.
Yeah.
But instead of everyone stockpiling weapons, they're competing for the smartest AI.
That's one way to look at it. And guess who's in a perfect position to, provide the tools for this race?
NVIDIA, of course. But let's zoom out for a second. This is all very big picture stuff. What does this mean for me, for the average person? Will we be using NVIDIA AI every day?
You might be surprised. Remember when we were talking about those AI customer service agents? NVIDIA technology powers those. And in 2023, they were talking about how we're close to having AI analyze medical images, personalize education, even design entire buildings.
Okay, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I still kind of think of them as a hardware company. What's their role going to be once all this crazy AI software is out there?
That's where all their talk about software in 2024 comes in. See, they're not just building the chips, they're writing the software that makes those chips work. It's having both, the cutting-edge hardware and the software that lets developers unlock AI's full potential.
So they're like the stagehands, the lighting crew, and the orchestra, all making sure the AI show can go on.
Exactly. And honestly, they're just getting started. Remember Jensen Huang, NVIDIA's CEO? He even hinted that we could see AI processing speeds increase by 1,000,000 times in the next few years.
1,000,000 times faster? Seriously, I can't even imagine what that would be like. Would it be like talking to another person, or would it be something totally different?
I don't think anyone really knows yet. It's like trying to explain the internet back in the 1950s, but that's what makes it so exciting. We're on the edge of something huge.
I think you're right. It's a lot to take in, but if there's one thing to remember, it's that NVIDIA isn't just shaping tech, it's shaping the future. They're building the tools that'll power the next wave of innovation. And it's up to us to decide what we do with it.
Totally. It's our chance to think big. We can do anything in a world where AI isn't just sci-fi, it's real life.
And on that note, we'll leave you to think about what you could do in this AI-powered future. What will you create? What will you solve? There's no limit to the possibilities, and NVIDIA is leading the way. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.